Okay, so let's just talk about what's going on in Ukraine, because I know that our viewers, I know each and every one of us, we all woke up this morning to something that we haven't seen since World War II. I know many of our viewers who maybe grew up in that era. This must feel eerily nostalgic. So after months of buildup, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine today. Videos of explosions all over the country are going viral on social media. There are videos of missiles hitting targets near airports and Ukrainian military bases. Even some civilian areas have been attacked, like this apartment building. Now, Russian military equipment and convoys of tanks have been seen entering the country. There's also video of Russian helicopters being shot at near Ukraine's capital. Russian President Vladimir Putin warned the West, saying, quote, "To anyone who would consider interfering from the outside, if you do, you will face consequences greater than any you have faced in history." So meantime, President Biden has vowed to hold Russia accountable and is moving forward with devastating sanctions in cooperation with our NATO allies. All right, there's a lot here.
A lot.
Jeff, what did you do? Did you see a text message? Did you go on? How did you learn about what was happening?
I'm just trying to go news station to news station and kind of piece it together. I don't really know the philosophy behind Vladimir Putin's reason for going in there. I would assume it has to do with oil, the pipelines, land in general.
Grab, yeah.
He's a dictator that wants to conquer like they have in the past. But I mean,
how did it make you feel?
It's a little scary. It's a little nerve-wracking, right? To think that a war could break out, a world war could break out. I feel terrible for the people in the Ukraine, and Vladimir Putin said nobody jump in, and unfortunately we can only do so much from the sidelines, because I don't think we're going to move into the Ukraine. If he starts bringing forces into NATO areas, Romania, Slovakia over there, Poland, there's one more over there, Romania,
yeah.
If he starts getting into there, we're going to have to start bringing troops over, because we're in that alliance. So is the rest of the world. So I don't think Vladimir Putin is scared to fight the whole world. I think he's got that mind, and that's what I'm scared of the most.
I think you just said a lot of what Joe Biden actually spoke out and said, and I want to update our viewers. Joe Biden spoke out and says we'll be cutting off the biggest banks. They'll be limiting exports. They will not be going into Ukraine, but they will be, as Jeff said, defending their NATO allies, which I assume means entering if they need to. There's 5,000 troops right now in Poland. Again, they're not entering Ukraine, but they're there, U.S. troops on the ground. And what's interesting is someone just wrote in that child's cry that we heard.
Made me stop.
That's like this is war. And I think when you think about it, it feels like a video game because it's kind of far away and distant. But what Putin said and what Putin means, and I mean, he's an old school dictator, old school. He's not afraid, from what I heard, to use a nuclear option. I'm not trying to scare people. I'm saying this is.
I think he was trying to scare people, and I think it's very effective. I think that this is almost the culmination of just like 10 years of rhetoric, of just people kind of constantly ratcheting up the U.S., we need to be strong, and then there was this thing where like we were almost cool with Russia for a little while, and then it began to get cold and now tepid, and now here we are, and we look, and I think all of us are just like, this is not only going to be in the history books, but also like, what are we going to tell our kids? What are we going to tell kids that are now military age, that are technically adults, 18, 22-year-olds that might be telling their family, like, I might need to deploy. I'm sure that they are on some kind of alert. And like you said, Jeff, you're out of it, and it's just sanctions until they attack a NATO country, and then we're talking about a different thing on Daily Blast Live.
Let me tell you what one, so the former U.S. ambassador to Russia, Michael McFowle said, quote unquote, "This is equivalent to September 1st, this gives me chills, 1939, the beginning of World War II. It makes me emotional because you also have a lot of Americans here, and I like to think of us as global, right? You have a lot of Americans here that left Ukraine at a young age. We have a close family member, a close family friend that left Ukraine at a young age, and they have survivor's guilt because in Ukraine you cannot leave that country. Maybe if you're of a certain means, to your point that you and I talked about earlier, Jeff, but you win a lottery. It literally is just like the lottery. You pay into it. If you win the lottery, you get to leave the country. So those people that still have family members there that are bunkering down, seeking refuge in subway stations. I'm sure you've seen the footage of little 3-year-olds in a subway station crying as you hear bombs above you. Again, this is something that is reminiscent of our history books to some of our viewers of a certain age that remember. That's got to be triggering.
The sounds, the air, excuse me, but I was getting emotional too. When I heard the air raid sounds, that reminds me of people in Britain had to hunker down during Christmas. That warning, something's coming. The airport being exploded. We're in a real war here, and we got to face that.
And I want to stay on this subject of things, but I hope this puts things in perspective for the American public, at least. We're worried about if Rosie O'Donnell apologized to Priyanka Chopra for getting something wrong. We are so in over our heads with this social media stuff. This is what's going on in the world. We are so blanketed and such in a warm, cozy blanket in America. We are forgetting what can happen. This is weeks away. If he gets to that NATO country, we are going to war. And that we have no recollection. We have nothing from our past. All we do is worry about our simple problems in America. And that's why people don't like us. They put their we put our noses up to everybody. But this is becoming our problem now.
That's really scary. And Sam, you said something that really made me think. You said, this is going to be on our televisions. I mean, how many scenes like you just painted, Tori, about, children screaming, crying, seeing war crimes happening in high def on our 80-inch TVs before the American public starts putting pressure on our government to make a move. But we have to remember, if we do make a move, there's no kind of walking that back with Putin. If we make a move, we need to be ready to go all in. And after 20 years in Afghanistan, I don't know what our forces look like, but I'm sure they're tired and worn out. I don't know if publicly we can do that mentally, send troops again.
No, I just want to mention this other quote because I'm seeing quotes everywhere, which also feels really eerie to me because I almost seen like our history playing out in the present. So journalist Dan Rather wrote, to take the side of Putin in any way is to take the side of an enemy to peace. And Tori, these people, these civilians living in Ukraine, their borders are closed. They have nowhere to go. Imagine what that feels like. I know you must feel helpless. At some point, we're going to show you some actionable steps to help.
And not only that, they're saying bear arms.
They're giving away arms.
Yes.
They're saying, if you're young enough, you're a man, you're there.
You have to.
Take the guns. We're giving them out. You have to. I also just want to say I've been watching the TV, and some people are like, hey, is Putin that bad? What's so wrong here? I want to re-emphasize what Dan Rather just said. If you are against dictatorship and you are for peace and you are for this country and democracy for innocent civilians, you will be against Putin. And that means a good patriot is against this dictator.
Our thoughts and prayers are with everyone there. And I'm going to end, speaking of quotes, let's continue on with this. Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg. I want you to hear this. Peace on our continent has been shattered. We now have war in Europe on a scale and a type that we thought belonged in history.